Hello, Trinity family. This is Pastor Dewar, and this is your Theology in 3. Merry Christmas. Christmas has always been my favorite holiday. Even as a kid, it was my favorite holiday. And I think the reason that it was my favorite holiday was because, well, it's like a whole month of celebrating, right? Like you get to put up a fancy tree in your house, get to put a bunch of decorations on it, get fancy music, drink some eggnog, maybe eat some Christmas cookies. And at the end of it, a bunch of adults come and give you things to shred open, and inside are toys. Like all these gifts are here. Like what 7-year-old wouldn't love that? So even as a kid, I knew the reason for Christmas wasn't all the presents and the cookies and all the rest. I knew that it was the birth of Jesus. But when you're 7, you kind of care more about that stuff than you do about the incarnation of Christ or the salvation of the world or anything like that. Now, one of the fun things that we get to do is we get to sing songs and sing Christmas carols and that kind of thing. I married into a family who's very musical. My wife's family loves to sing Christmas carols, so every Christmas we sing them. One of the carols they like to sing is the 12 Days of Christmas. And they'd have these cards. They're huge. They're like this big. They have these cards, and on the card is those 12 gifts. And they hand out the 12 cards to 12 people, and then we sing the song. And each person's responsible for singing their gift. So if you're at the beginning, you got to sing it 12 times. But you're responsible for a little bit of a solo. I'm not musical, so it's always rough when I have to sing, but there it is. Now, these 12 Days of Christmas is a fascinating song to me. First of all, because if you do the math, this man gives to his lady love 184 birds, which is kind of just ridiculous. 184 birds is not practical at all. And I look at it and I think, well, maybe in like a medieval context, these gifts would make sense, right? Like if a king gives it to a queen, that he says, here are a bunch of birds, maybe they're food birds that you'd be able to have a feast with or something like that. That would make a little more sense. But for just a normal person to give a normal person 184 birds and all these 3 drum lines and stuff like that, it's kind of crazy. So I did a little bit of research, and I found that the origin of the song is from the late 18th century. From 1780, I believe, is the first rendition of the song. And there are various renditions since. But what's interesting is that the song was probably originated as like a children's song, as like a call and repeat kind of song, where the first person would sing, partridge in a pear tree, and then the next person would have to say 2 things, and then also the thing the last person said. And so by the end of it, the 12th person has to remember what all 11 people that came before them said. And if any person in the line forgets something, then they lose. They're out of the game. And that's maybe how the song originated. They're not quite sure. But what I want to highlight most importantly here with the 12 Days of Christmas is that there are 12 days of Christmas. And this is something that is very helpful for us as modern Americans to learn, because our celebration of Christmas starts, with Black Friday and ends on December 25th. Which in the church here, we call that season Advent, which is the preparation for the coming of Christ, the waiting for the coming of Christ. But with the 12 days of Christmas, what we are taught is, oh, wait a minute, Christmas actually starts on December 25th and runs through to January 5th, which is Epiphany. And this is important because right about the time that you and I are kind of oversaturated with all the peppermint and all of the jingle bells and all the Christmas trees and the red and green everywhere, right when we're ready to say, all right, Christmas is done, let's look forward to the new year, the church says, no, we're going to start Christmas now. Now is when we do Christmas. And so now is the time when we're going to celebrate. Now is the time we're going to remember the incarnation of Christ. That Jesus came, he is a God incarnate. That means that God became human, that God lives with us. He understands us. He cares for us. He is someone that we can relate to. And when somebody says, who is your God? All we got to do is point. We just got to point and say, that guy over there, Jesus, he's my God. And so Christmas is a time to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And so when you come to church the next couple weeks, you're going to hear Christmas music, because now is Christmas. Christmas is now, these 12 days. This is the Christmas season. So we'll have Christmas music. We'll talk about the birth of Jesus. We'll talk about the incarnation, what that means for us. That is salvation for you and for me, salvation from our sins and the offer of everlasting life, that we get to live forever with Jesus. And so the 12 days of Christmas, I think, is a really helpful song, because it's teaching us that, well, Christmas isn't about consumerism. No, instead, Christmas starts on December 25th, and Christmas is instead about the birth of Jesus. I pray that you have a blessed rest of your day and that you'd be able to share this love of Christ with your neighbors.